All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's walkthrough is going to be going through variable declarations and data types, okay? So whenever we want to create a variable declaration, we have to first pick a data type, okay? There are about 9 different primitive data types we can use. Our class is going to focus on 3 or 4 of those tops, but it is good to know the other ones as well. The most common ones that we're going to be using are int, which stands for integer, which stores whole numbers as its values. Double, which is another data type that stores decimals as its value. A Boolean value, which stores true, false. I'm sorry, a Boolean data type, which stores true, false as its values. And then the last one is a data type of string, which allows us to have text as our values. And we'll go through examples of all of those. But the first thing you want to do whenever you're doing a variable declaration is you have your type, okay? So the first thing I type in is int for this one. So that's our data type. It's always going to be data type, variable name, and then a value. But we might not always know what the value is, and we can see what that looks like when it's blank, okay? So the next thing we need to do is we need to choose a variable name. Most of the time, your variable name should be something that is topical or related to whatever it is that we're doing. So if we're trying to figure out how many hours are in a day, you can do a data type that looks like this, or a variable name that looks like this. Number of hours, I should say. Okay, number of hours. That's all I'm referencing. And then when I'm looking at my program later on, I'll know exactly what that means. Okay. Notice how the first letter of num is lowercase, and then after I start a new word, it's all together, and the letters are capitalized. So the O is capitalized, H, the hours is capitalized. That's because this is referred to as camel casing, because you cannot have spaces in your variable names, okay? So if you want to have a multiple word variable name, this is the way you do it. You can also do something like this, num1. Okay, this is acceptable. You can't do this. So you can't do one num, okay? A number cannot be your first character in your variable name, all right? I'm going to go back to changing it to number of hours. And then you want to set it equal to something, and let's just say 24, okay? As soon as I give it a value, it doesn't matter what kind of data type I'm using, as soon as I give it a value, that is referred to as initialized, okay? So this variable declaration is now initialized, okay? If I didn't initialize it, if I didn't give it a value, this is what it looks like, okay? This is still a variable declaration. I've still declared my variable num of hours with the data type of int. It does not have a value yet, so that's why it is not initialized, okay? So, and this is what it looks like. As soon as I initialize it, it becomes a variable declaration that looks like this, right? Because I'm using int as my data type, which means I can only take whole numbers. I can take positive and negative whole numbers. It's actually, there's a certain range of it, but it's like usually like it's a very, very high number, so we don't have to worry about it. But I am not able to do something like this, okay? I cannot do int num of hours 24.5 because this is a decimal, and this data type only deals with whole numbers, okay? So this would be an example of a runtime error because the program runs, this is invalid data for this data type, okay? So that's an example of a runtime error, okay? So we'll get rid of that. Just to show you what some other ones look like, so double, this is gonna be, let's just call this answer 1. When you're using double, this is going to look something like this, 2.35, okay? Again, the variable name is up to you. It should be topical, so this probably isn't the best variable name. But double is referencing decimals. Next one we're going to do is Boolean. And I'm just going to call this one answer 2, just because I'm running out of names. When you're using Boolean values, Boolean only returns true or false values, okay? So I'm going to type in true, okay? And then the last one is string. We'll say today is a weekday. So this is what it looks like. Whoops, I forgot to do my variable name. Call this one message. Call it message. Okay. So I've got a string data type. My variable name is called message. Notice how all of these data types are blue, and then this one is white. So that's something to be mindful of. The word string is always capitalized, though. All right. So now I've got these different values, and now I want to plug them into a string. I want to concatenate them into a string. So I have a print statement. The value of my variable is, I'm gonna use a plus sign to concatenate, and then I can just plug in my variable name. So I'm gonna type in num of hours. Okay. My semicolon at the end. And when I run this, it's literally going to print whatever the values are that I have here. So I can have this variable name a ton of different places throughout my program and say I want to change its value. I only have to change the value once and it'll print that out. Okay. And you'll see that that's there. Okay. I can actually plug in. So because I concatenate like this, I can also plug it in the middle of my string. Okay. So I can say the value of my variable named concatenate, or I got to close my string literal. I'm going to concatenate with my plus sign. That is what allows me to connect variable names to string literals, etc. And let's just say sum of hours. Well, that's not going to work. I got ahead of myself. We're not going to worry about that just now. But this is how you concatenate variables. This is how you create variable declarations. Remember, it's a data type, variable name, and then a value. All right, should be straightforward.